Cyberpunk Jordan.
Jordan's Soapbox is a series supported via Patreon. If you would like to help keep the Volcano Hotel running, consider supporting it for behind-the-scenes access and other dumb rewards. Furthermore, we have a Discord server where you can hang out with me, talk about things, vote on topics, and other things that we thought were good ideas, I guess. Link to all of this in the description. And now, enjoy the show. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Abraham Lincoln. Maybe he was a vampire hunter, who knows. Alright, that's enough of that. I am not Ken Burns here. Anyway, hello my gummy bears. My name is Jordan, also known as CJ, and welcome back to Jordan's Soapbox, the show that talks about anything that I want to talk about. Today on the show, I want to talk about something that's a follow-up to my video on Sonic 173. Watch that video, by the way, if you haven't. House of Cards. No, not that House of Cards, the other House of Cards. Dang you. See, I didn't initially expect to cover this so soon after my Truth of the Heart episode, but my Discord elected to have me cover this. Not that I'm complaining, because House of Cards is kind of one of my favorite shorter arcs of the Archie Sonic canon. It's the culmination of a lot of foreshadowing. It recontextualizes bad choices the comic made into something interesting. It was essentially a Sonicified version of Captain America's Civil War before that even existed. And I want to talk about it, because I feel like it's barely mentioned when compared to other arcs like Iron Dominion, even though I think it's as interesting and fun as those. But before we do that, I think it's important to first talk about the backstory of House of Cards and the version we didn't have. So it has become so well known on this show, to the point where I sound like a broken record, I swear. Ian Flynn took over Sonic the Hedgehog when the comic spiraled into horrible and baffling creative choices, leaving Ian to pick up the mess and try to turn this sinking ship around. Surprisingly, it worked. Ian was successful in that endeavor. And by the 175th issue of the comic, there were two arcs being built up: Eggman Empire and House of Cards. Eggman Empire was an arc that featured Knothole being burnt to a crisp. Yeah, it's definitely going there. House of Cards, meanwhile, was the direct aftermath of that arc, with the looming threat of civil war within the Kingdom of Acorn. As, some might start to question why they even need them, with the whole, Knothole being burnt to the ground thing. Yeah. Sonic and Tails would find themselves on opposing sides of the conflict, and their friendship, which has been deteriorating very rapidly these past couple of issues, finally explodes into a conflict. Yet, House of Cards is different than what Ian had originally envisioned for it, as it was originally going to be a 4-issue arc that more detailed the build-up to that looming threat of civil war, with the freedom fighters finding themselves on different sides of the conflict. It was scrapped to a 2-issue arc instead, as editor Mike Pellerito wanted to start the Enerjack arc. Now, before everyone gets upset, this information is from a Bumblecast, and Ian has stated he could be misremembering. Some nuance that Ian had wanted for the arc is lost, such as Amadeus and Rosemary Prower, who are the leaders to the whole overthrow the king thing. Yeah, they would have tried internal reform, but found themselves hitting roadblock after roadblock. But at the same time, cutting it down allowed for a more focused storyline on the relationships between Sonic and Tails, the Acorns, and the Prowers. It still is amazing and worth talking about, even if some of that nuance was lost. House of Cards can be more or less divided into 2 stories. Starting with the brewing civil war in the Kingdom of Acorn, its citizens, or at least half of them, demand the overthrow of the current king Elias Acorn, led by Amadeus Prower. And honestly, it's not totally out of left field for this to happen. Keep in mind that under the Kingdom of Acorn, they've gone through the Great War, the rise of Dr. Robotnik, losing old Mobotropolis and Knothole. I'm really surprised that half the city wasn't already questioning their authority at this point. Amadeus and Rosemary Prower both know that there could be a democratic society due to their time on the alien world of Argentinum. It's a long darn story, but yeah, needless to say, these two know that a democratic society can exist, and that it should happen. At the same time, King Elias Acorn is sympathetic to their ideas and even has doubts about his own rule, but because of the legacy of the Kingdom of Acorn, especially from his ailing father, in addition to the whole, riot thing, he's forced to defend his current status. What I love about this arc is that both sides are written to be understandable in this conflict, with no clear faction that's totally correct. We're supposed to, as the reader, feel conflicted, and ask what side we want to be on, if at all. This leads into the second story of House of Cards, and what you're all probably here to see, the whole Sonic versus Tails thing. It's been hinted at in the issues leading up to this one that things haven't been well for the two, with Sonic being oblivious not only to how hurt Tails is over the whole, Fiona Fox thing, but his disregard in general for Tails and his feelings, which is noted in the very start of the issue, with Sonic making an insensitive comment when Amadeus is locked up for starting a riot. His father. Yeah, not a good move, Sonic. Even Nicole calls out Sonic for this, but he brushes it off. It's selfishness, something up to this issue that Sonic has quite frankly had a lot of when it comes to those around him, and he's too oblivious to see it or understand the consequences of it. So, is it any wonder that Tails busts out his father later on? It's not only because the anti-monarchy cause is the cause of his parents, I mean, that is a huge factor, but not only that. It's also because he likely doesn't view Sonic as a reliable source of information anymore in terms of values or views. Sonic in this conflict is also more on the side of the Kingdom of Acorns, and that can be explained as someone who literally fought his entire life to restore the Kingdom of Acorns. I mean, he is sympathetic to the Prowers, but he believes that overthrowing the king is treason, and that breaking out Amadeus Prower won't help. These two find themselves on different sides, with one tied to family and the other tied to country. And it leads into what this issue has been hyping up, Sonic versus Tails. It kicks off proper when Sonic interrupts that whole breakout, with Tails hiding an event. Wait, can I legally make an Among Us reference here? Anyway, with the eyes of someone about to snap mentally, Tails watches as Sonic talks to his folks. And after hearing Sonic's little idiotic and really ill-advised statement on how Tails worships him and he'll be able to move on from this, which is a really just wow, Sonic. I don't think I need to inform Sonic of this, but who he's talking to is literally Tails' parents. Yeah, you're getting what's coming to you. Tails ends up walloping him. It's deserved, but keep in mind, it's shocking for the time, as these two only fought if it was brainwashing or mind control. But it wasn't this time. These two found themselves on different sides of a conflict, and their long-decaying friendship finally exploded into the hall of the new Mobotropolis prison. I honestly love the fight between the two because it's choreographed really well with their unique abilities and dialogue that really demonstrates just how much Tails has snapped from all the things he's been through with Sonic. It also helps that we have lovely commentary from the villains that are in here, such as Bean. I miss Bean. I really love Bean. Meanwhile, the Prowers confront King Elias and demand he steps down. But because we're in that point of no return and these two sides ain't gonna listen to one another anymore, it evolves into some brief but really fun sword fighting that contrasts well with the more hand-to-hand combat of Sonic and Tails. We've reached our climax of the arc. Heroes are fighting with each other and a civil war seems almost imminent, and now we really need a way down. That way down comes with Sonic, after being rightfully told by Tails how much of a jerk he's been, leading to a decaying friendship, stating that everything he's done to help Tails is being skewed, with Tails firing back, "So you hooked up with Fiona to help me." Ouch. Alright, so there is a lot of takes online stating that this scene was stupid because it basically says that Tails was only upset because of Fiona. Yeah, no, that's not the case here. That was the breaking point for Tails, but as mentioned before, there were a lot of other things leading up to this. Fiona was only a spark that lit the match alongside the looming civil war and other issues. To me, though, the knife in the freaking heart comes from when Tails states that, quote, "Everything I care about, you take away from me." It hurts because it isn't wrong. Sonic has been in this entire time unintentionally, but still is. And Sonic realizes it as well and makes amends with Tails. It feels natural, and in a way that doesn't resolve everything, but enough for them to repair their friendship. It was resolved the best way it really could, considering the length of this arc, and not to mention just trying to address those bad creative choices that just really shouldn't have been a thing to start with, but oh well. But we have one more loose end to tie up, and that's the whole, imminent civil war thing. You think we forgot about that? Nicole ends up being cheeky and decides to tell Sally about it, because she was instructed by Elias not to wake their father, but didn't say anything about his sister. Gosh, I love Nicole. Sally reminds both of them the flaws in their reasoning. Elias didn't even want to be king, and Amadeus didn't want to start a bloody coup to overthrow the king. Convincing both of them that perhaps some compromise was in order, they agreed to a new government structure that would be essentially a council with the king as one of its members, kinda like a constitutional monarchy. This would be the governing structure of New Mobotropolis and worked pretty well. Until Aigis Naga shows up, but you know what, that is a totally other deal for another time. Sonic and Tails' relationship is thus restored, democracy is now a thing, and all is right with the world. Anyway, I love House of Cards a lot, and I just wanted to gush about it a bit. No, it's not as epic as other stories in the Archie Sonic canon, such as Iron Dominion, but gosh darn it, it's still a lot of fun. It allowed for an interesting thread of civil war that made sense with the comic continuity, and allowed for a battle between two heroes that felt earned and was delivered spectacularly. Yes, it's short. Yes, some nuance is lost, but you know what? This was the deck that Ian was handed. And my gosh, did Ian play the hand well. Anyway, that's all for this episode of Jordan's Soapbox. Join me next time when what was that? Noise. What? Ticking? That wasn't nice. Hey, thanks so much for visiting the Jordania Volcano Hotel and Resort today. We hope you'll stop by again real soon. If you like this video, consider liking the video, or even better, subscribing and ringing the bell so you'll know when we call you back down here again. Follow us on social media too in order to keep up with us. Until we meet again, safe travels out there.